What's up, ladies and gentlemen of YouTube? Boogie2988 coming at you live once again to the power of the internet, and you are watching the only gaming news show that genuinely has no fucking clue what it's doing. I've decided I want to try to start doing this almost weekly as long as there's enough news to do, so that way I can get better at the editing and the filming and the talking and everything else. So bear with me, I'm going to try to do this about 47 more times this year. I also don't have a proper sponsor for this episode, so I figured at the end of the episode, I would open up this Marvel Gear and Goods specialty loot crate. And if you decide you want to get a loot crate for yourself or somebody you love, use the link here down below. And if you use my coupon code, you'll save 10% and I'll make some money. So the one thing you guys mostly wanted me to talk about was to make a video about GameStop's Circle of Life program, which led to some people working for GameStop saying they were straight out lying to customers. Now, I'm sure the majority of you guys have a pre-order for the Nintendo Switch at GameStop right now, so I'm probably preaching to the choir, but for the handful of people who may not know how GameStop's business model works, let me explain it to you. GameStop sells a ton of new product, new games, new hardware, new collectibles, and stuff like that, but that's really a design to just get you in the front door because the majority of their profits doesn't come from selling new product. It comes from selling product that they've purchased from you at a rock bottom price and then selling it back to you at near the price of a new version of that thing. Whenever a store like GameStop or even Walmart sells new games, their profit margin is very, very thin. It might be as high as 50% on collectibles and things like that, but it can be smaller than 10% or even less on brand new games. The bulk of the profits for brand new games tend to go to developers. But if you were to buy a new copy of a game, you can also sell that copy of that game back to GameStop for a fraction of what you paid. Maybe they'll pay you $30 for that $60 game, maybe $20, maybe $10, and then once they purchase that from you, they will put it on the shelf for the highest price they can, maybe $40, $50, or $60. So obviously, they get a huge chunk of profit from selling used games that they bought cheaply, and none of that money gets kicked up to the developers. And by the way, this is the problem that Microsoft tried to solve when they tried to reinvent the disc and determine what a video game was. Even though a lot of us preferred having the right to buy and trade and sell our games, it does suck that the developers get cut out, and that was Microsoft's original intent. So in enters GameStop's Circle of Life program, which basically encourages their employees to sell used copies of games and used products and used stuff over new stuff, as well as rating those employees and their job performance based on how well they're able to get you to buy the used product instead of new stuff. And this program was so restrictive for employees that many employees took to Reddit to complain about it, saying that it actually encouraged them to lie or mishandle their customers. So much so that they often found themselves lying to customers. One example was given that when Watch Dogs 2 went down to $30 as a new copy, they actually hid all of the versions of that game that were new because the version on the shelf was much more expensive at like 45 or 55 bucks, but they didn't want to give the customers the chance to buy the new copy because that could hurt their Circle of Life score. And this could easily make you mad at those employees, but the reality of it is they are just reacting to a very boneheaded and stupid decision made by the corporate people over at GameStop. Obviously, it makes sense on paper that the more used games they sell, the more profit they make, and so that the people on the end should be making efforts to make sure you are buying the used product instead of the new product. But this policy is so restrictive and so strict on the employees that in reality, a lot of these decisions are just simply because they are terrified of losing their job. No one wants to get fired because they don't sell enough used product. And that's the thing, I will still use GameStop fairly frequently, mostly because my local GameStops and their management teams are pretty great. But try to keep this in mind the next time you're going into a GameStop and having a frustrating experience. You have to ask yourself whether or not it's the corporation that's causing the problems or whether or not it's the person waiting on you. And chances are it is the corporation itself. So try to take that in mind when you are yelling at a GameStop employee or boring them to death with your terrible stories about how much the console you hate sucks. So my message is fairly simple to anybody who works at GameStop corporate who might be watching this, and I know a few of you do watch, keep in mind that this is the kind of stuff that makes your employees miserable, and when your employees are miserable, we customers are miserable, and that's when we YouTubers start attacking you guys. I know you guys are trying to drive profit to keep the doors open so there are jobs to be had at all, but here's the thing. These are the kind of policies that close doors. So get your shit figured out, GameStop. So Fire Emblem Heroes is finally out, and I have to say I'm fairly surprised at how good it is for a mobile game. I'm not a huge tactical fighting fan, therefore I'm not a huge Fire Emblem fan, but I do really, really like these collectible mobile hero arena types of things, and I have to say, this is probably one of the best ones. The hero leveling system is fairly good. The combat itself is fairly good. The maps are a little small, but I kind of like that being a tactical player. There is autoplay for the games that you know you're going to win. There's a lot of content right there at the beginning. They are very generous with the resources, and when it comes to buying resources, it's fairly inexpensive. But I will say that when it comes to hero collecting or hero leveling, it can be fairly limiting. Obviously, there is a ton of heroes that you can get in this game, and if you want the high-named roster, the characters from the Fire Emblem's games, it's going to cost a pretty penny to be able to unlock those. Either that or you're going to have to spend a lot of time grinding to get the orbs to open those. And then on top of that, you have to level them up and then empower them and get them up to their full levels and so on and so forth. It's either going to take a lot of time or a lot of money, and that time is doubled down and tripled down because it uses a fairly limiting stamina system that keeps you only playing the game in short bursts several times throughout the day. But I have to say, it is a game that I've been fairly eager to play. I'm really unlocking heroes that I recognize, mostly the ones that have been turned into amiibos, and this is actually probably turned into a gateway game for me, because even though I already own the Fire Emblem games, I've never really taken the time to sit down and play them, and this is actually going to get me to do that, so kudos on them for that. And as an advocate for VR, probably this is the most depressing story to have to bring to you guys, but it looks like the Oculus Rift may be on its final legs. A court in Dallas decided to award $500 million to ZeniMax in a long-going court case against the founders of the Oculus Rift, saying they built the Oculus Rift with stolen technology. And this is just pretty much the last in a long line of bad publicity and bad luck for the Oculus Rift. Basically, the court decided that a good amount of the programming as well as some of the hardware designs for the Oculus Rift were developed while the people who created it were still working for ZeniMax, which makes it basically ZeniMax's property. ZeniMax is also supposedly looking into halting the sales of the Oculus Rift for now, which is kind of unnecessary because honestly, I don't think they're selling any at all. I mean, basically the Oculus Rift is kind of dead in the water. Because it just really didn't find its niche in the market. If you want a gaming device for your PC, you go with the Vive. If you want it for a console, you go with the PlayStation VR. If you want at home for just entertainment values, you get the ones that go with your cell phone, but there's plenty of competitors there with Google with the Pixel and other people moving in that direction. So I really don't know that the Oculus company even needs to exist for VR to be successful. Not that it's currently very successful anyway. Which is really, really frustrating because I was rooting for them to succeed when they kickstarted, and then I started rooting for them to fail when they got out by Facebook, and now that they failed, I can tell you it brings me zero satisfaction. I wish VR was the future, but the folks at Oculus have kind of guaranteed it won't be. And then finally, if you've bought a PlayStation 4 Pro but have been scratching your head and wondering why, because no games seem to be taking advantage of it, patch 4.50 for the PlayStation Pro is going to introduce Boost Mode. And boy, do I wish they had called that Beast Mode. But basically, only current games and games going forward can really take advantage of the PlayStation 4 Pro's hardware. Nobody's going to go back to older games and code them to take advantage of it. But with Boost Mode, the PlayStation 4 will automatically do that, giving you some better performance, including better frame rates and a lot of older games. And most of the games that people have tested with the 4.50 patch, it does seem like that's going to be the case for the majority of games. So this will at least give you some reason to be glad that you got the Pro over the other device, especially if you're not using it for a little extra added oomph for VR. I will imagine for those Xbox fans at home that the Project Scorpio will probably do something like this, and now that PlayStation 4 has already done it, I bet Scorpio will do that at launch, and that will be awesome. And that's all the news for this week, so let's see what Loot Crate sent us. Right off the bat, we have an apron. Oh, it's Black Panther! This is a Black Panther apron. My wife will add this to her apron collection. Here you go, honey. Yeah. Here's some sort of super science plate set. Oh, it's the Hulk, Iron Man, Spider-Man, and Ant-Man. Weird. Here is a measuring cup with Hank Pym, aka Ant-Man. That's adorable. Inexplicably, here is an ice mold of MODOK. If you want ice shaped as MODOK, there you go. Finally, here's the pen, and the pen is Ultron. And then a little guide to everything you get, but it's got a nice little piece of artwork for Iron Man's suit. That's actually fit for framing. I like it. If you want to get the Marvel Gear and Goods loot crate for yourself or any other type of loot crate, go to lootcrate.com/boogie2988 and use coupon code boogie2988. You'll save some money and I'll make some money, but no, you never have to do that. You can just come to the channel and watch me open mine. And that's it for this week. I hope you guys are enjoying these gaming news segments as much as I'm enjoying making them. It feels very different than my usual content, and it feels like you guys are enjoying it a lot. I just enjoy doing it. And of course, the fact that there's a nice little spot for a sponsor each week guarantees that the channel performs well, even when views are down, even when YouTube is messing with me in the algorithm. I can always guarantee that the lights are going to stay on and I can keep making content for you guys. So let me know what you think in the comments section below about this, about any of the news, about what news you'd like to see me covering, what would you like to see me do different in the future. I'm always reading your feedback and I always love hearing it. Guys, as always, thanks for watching. I love you very much, and I'll speak with you again soon. Why MODOK ice cubes? Weird.